This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch for Tuesday, March 3rd. I'm George Thomas. Today, the biggest battle yet for the Democratic presidential candidates, with Mike Bloomberg on the ballot and Joe Biden gaining support. But can they stop Bernie Sanders? And in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu comes out on top in Monday's election. Now, can he form a new government? The head of the World Health Organization says we have entered, quote, uncharted territory in dealing with the coronavirus as the disease continues to spread worldwide, from Iran all the way to South Korea. And two big cases for the Supreme Court on Obamacare and abortion. Those stories and much more today on Newswatch. But we begin with Tuesday's super primaries in 14 states. And by this time tomorrow, we will have a better idea of who is in command of the Democratic presidential race. One key reason voters today have fewer choices on the ballot after two top candidates dropped out and supported Joe Biden as he tries to stop Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders from winning the party's nomination. And Michael Bloomberg tries to win votes for the very first time. Abigail Robertson brings us the story from the Super Tuesday state of North Carolina.
As voters head to the polls, Joe Biden picked up some major endorsements ahead of today, hoping to rally more moderate Democrats around defeating Democratic Socialist Bernie Sanders in the primary.
We can win big or lose big. That's the choice that's upon us now.
Senator Amy Klobuchar and Mayor Pete Buttigieg ended their campaigns before Super Tuesday, and both announced they would back Biden.
I'm encouraging everybody who was part of my campaign to join me, because we have found that leader in Vice President, soon to be President, Joe Biden.
Even with the boost, Bernie Sanders still leads the polls in delegate-rich Texas and California. So the question remains whether Biden can catch him.
We are going to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of America.
Billionaire Mike Bloomberg ignored early voting states, hoping to make a splash on Super Tuesday with his ballot debut.
I honestly think that Mike Bloomberg is a bit maybe out of his depth and got excited about running for president because he had the resources to do it and certainly some experience, but I don't think that he's going to be particularly successful.
President Trump is also on the campaign trail, bringing in massive crowds around the country, with people camping out for days ahead of his rallies.
Drain that swamp! Drain that swamp! Drain that swamp! Drain that swamp!
I'm the first person in line, yes.
When did you get here?
I got here about 1:45 midnight Thursday night.
Sharon's been on the Trump train since day one and tells CBN News this is the 7th time she's been first in line for one of his rallies.
I love the job he's doing, and I love to listen to him explain what he's doing and explain his plans for the future.
With more than a third of the total delegates being awarded by the end of today, the Democratic Party will soon have a clearer picture of who might be taking on Trump in 2020. Reporting from Charlotte, North Carolina, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thank you, Abigail. Moving overseas to Israel, where Benjamin Netanyahu's opponents, well, they keep writing his political obituary. But after the voters spoke for the third time in a year, the Prime Minister holds the inside track to form Israel's next government. He still must build a coalition, though, even as the vote count continues. John Wagi brings us the story from Tel Aviv.
Jubilation at Likud party headquarters after the most skilled campaigner in Israel's history came from behind once again.
It's a win against all odds because we stood up against the powerful forces. They already eulogized us. Our enemies said the Netanyahu era is over, but we turned the plate on its head.
Likud's victory puts the Prime Minister right on the edge of a governing majority. He was in the same position last year and failed. But the people celebrating here tonight believe this time he won't be denied.
Exit polls gave the parties on the right at least 59 seats, just short of the 61 needed to end the Knesset logjam. But the full vote count could take days, and that makes for some anxious moments.
We're hoping it's going to be 61, and then we don't need anybody, and whoever wants to come is welcome, and whoever doesn't, we can still manage a government.
Still, Netanyahu's rival, blue and white leader Benny Gantz, refused to concede.
We created something called Blue and White. We merged our documents and principles to one place, and I am telling you that we won't compromise on our principles and our way.
In past campaigns, Likud counted on former Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman as a solid part of the right-wing bloc. But he started the election stalemate last year and says he won't compromise now.
We don't plan to move 1 millimeter from what we promised, from what we committed to our voters.
Even if Gantz and Lieberman won't compromise, the Likud camp believes in coming days they can find Knesset members from the left or the center to join them and save Israelis from a fourth election. John Wagi, CBN News, Likud headquarters, Tel Aviv.
Thank you, John. Our CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is now with us from Jerusalem. Right now, Netanyahu has 59 seats. Chris, how can he get to 61 seats and form a government?
Well, George, that's the big question right now. There's a couple of ways he could do it. It could be in the final vote. Right now, they haven't counted all the votes of the soldiers and diplomats. Soldiers in particular tend to lean right. So that actually might get him to 61 seats, possibly. Believe it or not, we also have people that have been quarantined from the coronavirus. Those votes have to be counted. So the final tally will be on Thursday, and then we'll see what happens. But as John was talking about in his story, there's possible defectors from the Blue and White Party, even a breakup of the Blue and White Party. That would be able to take Netanyahu over the 61 threshold he needs. And yet, as I should also mention, George, there's really tremendous public pressure not to have a fourth election. Israelis have gone 3 times within a year, never have done that in their history. And so there's pressure on politicians to try to form a government, regardless of how they do it right now. And Netanyahu is so close, it seems like he can do it.
Yeah. Chris, his political opponents have been writing his obituary. How did he do it this time?
Well, he's tireless, George. He was a tireless campaigner. He was going to 5 and 6 rallies per day, as John said in his story. Perhaps the best campaigner in Israel's history. And he had a strategy this time. They knew that there were 300,000 Likud voters who did not vote in last September in the second election. So they targeted those voters. And that was something that I heard from one of his spokesmen in his office just several weeks ago. He also ran a positive campaign, unlike the first 2 campaigns. And he used good humor. He actually had a brilliant campaign ad that was that he was actually taking the place of Likud voters, that he would take their walk their dogs, that he would deliver their pizzas, and he did that in such a good-natured way. That was all part of his campaign that really seemed to take him very close to forming a government.
All of this overshadowed in some ways, Chris, perhaps by the trial that Netanyahu is scheduled to face on March 17th. Any sense if that's going to affect his ability to form a government?
Well, we're in uncharted waters right now, legally and politically. It may hinder him forming a government. There's one group that has actually filed a motion to the Supreme Court earlier that any prime minister that's under indictment won't be able to form a government. The Supreme Court denied that motion, but it's likely to be filed again. It's also likely that we'll see the Knesset. They could have a vote, if he's able to form a government, to actually give immunity to Netanyahu. So both legally and politically, we're really in uncharted waters. You mentioned that trial. It's supposed to begin on March 17th. And also, as any defendant can do, and I was talking to a lawyer earlier today about this, he can ask that the trial would be delayed. Whether or not the Attorney General of Israel will delay that remains to be seen. But these are all things that could happen. We've never seen this in Israeli history, to have a sitting prime minister under indictment and with the possibility that they would form a government. One other factor I'll mention, George, is in the election was the fact that the Trump peace plan, the relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump, really was a factor among many people, particularly Americans, Anglos. There's about 250,000 voters here, and that was a factor that Netanyahu could deliver on this peace and prosperity peace plan by President Trump.
All right, fantastic. Chris, reporting all things Middle East, specifically Jerusalem, at this very critical time. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your insights. Now to the latest on the coronavirus epidemic. The leader of the World Health Organization now says we're in uncharted territory. And here in the U.S., another state, Georgia, has now confirmed its first 2 cases of the virus. Mark Martin has the story.
A Washington state community is the epicenter of the coronavirus in America as the disease continues to spread in the U.S. Health officials have confirmed more than 100 cases of the virus in 14 states. Worldwide, more than 90,000 people have been infected and 3,100 have died from the coronavirus. At least 70 countries have been affected. In Italy, coronavirus cases have spiked, leading Delta and American Airlines to suspend all flights to Milan. Back in the U.S. and Washington state outside Seattle, the death toll has risen to 6. Research suggesting that the virus could have been spreading in the community for weeks.
The risk for all of us of becoming infected will be increasing.
4 of those victims called this Washington state nursing facility home. It's now the center of the outbreak. Colleen Mallory's 89-year-old mother lives here.
If she gets sick, she's going to be gone.
On the other side of the country, school leaders shut down a Rhode Island high school and 38 people are under quarantine. Officials made the decisions after a student and faculty member tested positive for the virus following a school trip to Italy. In New York State, officials launched their own testing procedures after announcing the first case in Manhattan.
There is no doubt that there will be more cases where we find people who test positive. This is New York. We're a gateway to the world.
Vice President Mike Pence, who is in charge of the government's response to the coronavirus, says the U.S. is prepared.
Despite today's sad news, let's be clear. The risk to the American people of the coronavirus remains low.
Pence also said a possible vaccine could be making its way to clinical trials within the next 6 weeks. President Donald Trump says he's urging drug companies to speed up the process of creating a coronavirus vaccine. Mark Martin, CBN News.
By the way, prayer leaders have issued a call to prayer against the coronavirus. The Reformation Prayer Network and the Intercessory Group Generals International are calling for a day of prayer and fasting today. The event will be webcast. Prayer points include praying Psalm 91 over families and nations, praying against fear, and wisdom for world leaders. You can learn more about how you can take part in this day of prayer at our website, cbnnews.com. Stay with us with the latest on the coronavirus as we continue to provide updates right here on the CBN News Channel and on cbnnews.com. At least 2 tornadoes touched down early this morning in central Tennessee, including one that ripped across downtown Nashville. As lightning repeatedly flashed, it caused about 40 buildings to collapse around the city. That's what police said as they searched for injured people. Some power lines were knocked out and some buildings are unrecognizable now. And this morning, the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency confirmed 7 deaths from the tornado. Coming up, the Supreme Court is taking up 2 hot-button issues, Obamacare and abortion. We'll see why some in the pro-life community believe the High Court could even re-examine the Roe versus Wade case that legalized abortion. That story right back in a moment.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. Whoa! It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
No Spur Falls, man.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
The Supreme Court will once again take up a case involving Obamacare, this time when it convenes a new term in October. And that will put the issue front and center in the political debate just weeks ahead of the presidential election in November. The appeal center on the Affordable Care Act's individual mandate and comes after a federal court ruling in December. That ruling, by the way, called it unconstitutional to require all Americans to buy insurance or pay a penalty. The Supreme Court will hear the appeal and decide whether or not it agrees with the federal court. And tomorrow, the High Court takes up its first major abortion case since the confirmation of President Trump's 2 new justices. As Paul Strand reports, pro-life activists hope this will give the court a pro-life majority for the first time in decades.
The Louisiana case is about a state law insisting abortion doctors have admitting privileges at a local hospital for their patients. The state says it's necessary in case medical complications arise that the clinic can't handle. But abortion providers say only one Louisiana abortion doctor has such admitting privileges. So enforcing the law would drive needed doctors out of the business, and they say that would be an undue burden on women's right to an abortion.
There's an abortion business that is fighting for the right to abandon its patients. And the court is also going to be looking at the question of whether that business should be allowed to go into court and try to strike down the very laws that were enacted to protect their patients, the women.
Alan Parker of the Justice Foundation says many women he represents are asking the court to rule against the abortion providers.
We actually put in 4,660 legally admissible written testimonies of women injured by abortion. It's the largest collection in the world of direct sworn evidence about what abortion does to women.
There is a lie out there that is promoted by the abortion lobby.
Brandy Swindell says the lie is that abortion is good for women, and she fights it by running pro-life pregnancy centers.
Staffed by people and by women who have had abortions, and they're involved in pro-life work because they believed the lie and then they experienced the pain of abortion, and it changed their life forever.
We know for decades women have been speaking out more and more about the harm abortion does to them for a lifetime. And it's not that abortion sometimes harms the mother, it always harms the mother. 207
Capitol Hill lawmakers want the court to use this case to review its stand that no undue burden can be placed on women getting an abortion. That could potentially lead the court to reconsider whether getting an abortion itself should be an automatic right. Pro-life activist David B. Wright says it's certainly not a constitutional right, but one made up by the justices in 1973.
And they actually even described that this right, which hadn't ever previously existed in the formation of our country and in the Constitution of the United States, but they said they found it in the penumbra, or the shadows, of the Constitution. And it's because it was never there in the first place.
Foster says it's time to re-examine that so-called right.
The court can finally take a look at the precedent that got us here, looking at it and recognizing that it is the court's prerogative to assess that precedent.
The court should announce its ruling in this important case by June. Paul Strand, CBN News, the Supreme Court.
Still ahead, she's spearheading a mission to help starving children in developing countries. And we'll hear from her when we come back.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary, or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today.
Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
And welcome back to CBN News. Here in America, where obesity continues to increase, it may be difficult to imagine the vast numbers of children suffering from malnutrition in developing countries. CBN's Lori Johnson spoke to a woman spearheading a mission that helps these starving children. Her ministry also takes care of young children while their mothers work in the sex industry.
Tell us more about if they didn't have night care, what kind of a life they would have.
So I was in Bangladesh, and I was in the largest brothel in Bangladesh. And I asked the moms who work in that brothel, I said, what do you do with your baby or toddler while you're working? 8 out of 10 of those moms said, the baby's on the bed with me while I'm working.
Oh, shocking.
Right? I'm serious. So, and then I've seen, babies. I had one mom show me, here's a tangle of twine. She ties this to her baby's ankle while she's working, and sometimes to her ankle while she's working, so the baby doesn't wander off or get stolen or whatever. I mean, so these are very day-to-day realities.
Right, and I also read in your book that some of these prostitutes drug their children and put them under the bed so that they don't make noise, and sometimes the customers, if you will, also violate the children.
Yeah, that's true. And the thing is, you think, well, these horrible moms, but the moms, most of the time, they're doing this to make a living to provide for their baby and toddler. They don't read, they don't write, they don't have alternative vocations. I mean, this is just survival, basic survival.
I just think the night care is spectacular. Explain the types of things that you offer the kids.
We give them a bath, we give them a dinner, we give them some circle playtime, a little bit of education stuff, and then we put them down for sleep, and they sleep through the night. Moms collect them in the morning.
What do you say when people say, well, by doing this, you're basically condoning prostitution?
Right. My opinion on that, my position on that is, you can try to do remedy work, or you can do prevention work. So for a baby and a toddler, if they grow up in this industry and that's all they see, then that's what they're going to do. But what I'm doing is attempting to prevent, give them an alternative, a fork in the road to say, hey, there's something different. You don't have to do this industry.
Wow. To watch the entire interview, tune into Healthy Living with Lori Johnson tonight at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, the director of the new CBN film, I Am Patrick, talks about how he got the famous actor John Rhys Davies to play the role of the legendary St. Patrick. We will have that when we come back.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians are
Christians in Iran are routinely arrested.
Catholic Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m.
Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Welcome back. Today, Christians are suffering intense persecution in countries like Nigeria and Iran. It's a modern-day example of the persecution that's been going on for 2,000 years of church history. In 5th century Ireland, St. Patrick was enslaved, imprisoned and tortured for his faith, but he persevered. And as a result of his ministry, the entire nation of Ireland was converted to Christianity. CBN Films' newest docudrama, I Am Patrick, tells a real life story of the legendary saint. CBN's The Prayer Link sat down with the director of the film, Jared Anderson, to talk about how actor John Rhys Davies got on board to play Patrick. He says, I wasn't supposed to be in the film. I actually asked him once I did the voiceover record, he's got to play the part, and I had the chance to ask him. I said, I don't know if it's beneath you, but would you consider actually playing the part? And he said it would not be beneath him at all. To see the full interview with Jared Anderson and more, be sure to watch The Prayer Link. You can catch it tonight on the CBN News Channel at 9:30 Eastern. I Am Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, hits theaters, by the way, for a 2-night Fathom event, March 17th and 18th. Tickets are on sale now, so be sure to go to iampatrick.com to see the show times and to reserve your seats. Well, folks, that is it for this edition of Newswatch. Remember, you can find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you have seen here by emailing us at newswatch@cbn.com, or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Well, that is it for this edition of the CBN News Channel. I hope you'll join us again next time. Goodbye, and God bless.
Christ the Lord told me to come here to be with these people for the rest of my life.
People thought that his efforts to Christianize Ireland were doomed to failure.